Hi, kindergarten, it's Miss Frennis again, and we've been talking about fiction stories, and we're going to be reading a fiction story today. And remember, fiction stories are made up, imaginary, or pretend. The author uses their imagination to create these amazing stories that we can enjoy. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're sad, sometimes they're serious, but it is the author's imagination, and they can create a story any way they want because it's fiction. And today we're going to be reading Pete the Cat and his 4 Groovy Buttons. And as you can see, it was created and illustrated by James Dean, and the story is by Eric Litwin. So if we look on our spine here, we can see that there's an E on it for the everybody section, and then it's the first 3 letters of the author's last name, which is L-I-T. So we know that it would go on the L shelf on the short shelves in the library. Also, when we're reading this book, I want you to pay really close attention to who are the characters in this story and where does the story take place, because we're talking about fiction stories and we're going to kind of dive into what a fiction story has. And of course, fiction stories has characters and settings, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So pay close attention. Pete the Cat put on his favorite shirt with his 4 big, colorful, round, groovy buttons. He loved his buttons so much, he sang this song. My buttons, my buttons, my 4 groovy buttons, my buttons, my buttons, my 4 groovy buttons. Oh no! One of the buttons popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 3. 4 minus 1 equals 3. 1, 2, 3. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My buttons, my 3 groovy buttons, my buttons, my 3 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 2. 3 minus 1 equals 2. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My buttons, my 2 groovy buttons, my buttons, my 2 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My button, my 1 groovy button, my button, my 1 groovy button. Oh no, the last button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 0. 1 minus 1 is 0. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. Pete looked down at his buttonless shirt. And what do you think he saw? his belly button, of course, and he kept on singing his song. My button, I still have my belly button. My button, I still have my belly button. It's all good. I guess it simply goes to show that stuff will come and stuff will go. But do we cry? Goodness, no. We keep on singing. Buttons come and buttons go. Boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed our story, Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons. I know a lot of people like that story too. But today what you're going to be doing is you're going to be filling in my setting and my characters. So we talked about fiction stories, and we know that fiction stories are made up, imaginary, pretend. It's the author's imagination. And also fiction stories always have a character, and fiction stories always have a place where they take place at. So what you're going to be doing today is you're going to draw where the story took place. And then you're also going to draw the main character of the story. So we're talking about our setting and our characters in a fiction story. Boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed our story, and I'll see you next week. Bye.